Good morning. The reading for today is the end of chapter 5 of The Rare Jewel of Christian Contentment, the teachings of Christ on contentment. Christ teaches us wherein consists any good that is to be enjoyed in any creature in the world. We have taught before that there is a vanity in the creature, that is considered in itself. Yet though there is a vanity in the creature in itself, in respect of satisfying the soul for its portion, there is yet some goodness in the creature, some desirableness. Now wherein does this consist? It consists not in the nature of the creature itself, for that is nothing but vanity, but it consists in its reference to the first being of all things. This is a lesson that Christ teaches. If there is any good in wealth or in any comfort in this world, it is not so much that it pleases my sense or that it suits my body, but that it has reference to God, the first being, that by these creatures somewhat of God's goodness might be conveyed to me, and I may have a sanctified use of the creature to draw me nearer to God, that I may enjoy more of God, and be made more serviceable for His glory in the place where He has set me. This is the good of the creature. Oh, that we were only instructed in this lesson and understood and thoroughly believed this. No creature in all the world has any goodness in it, any further than it has reference to the first infinite supreme good of all. That so far as I can enjoy God in it, so far it is good to me, and so far as I do not enjoy God in it, so far there is no goodness in any creature. How easy it would be if we really believed that, to be content. Suppose a man had great wealth only a few years ago, and now it is all gone. I would only ask this man, when you had your wealth, in what did you reckon the good of that wealth to consist? A carnal heart would say anybody might know that. It brought me in so much a year, and I could have the best fare and be a man of repute in the place where I live. When a man regarded what I said, I might be clothed as I would and lay up portions for my children. The good of my wealth consisted in this. Now such a man never came into the school of Christ to know in what the good of an estate consisted, so no marvel if he is disquieted when he has lost his estate. But when a Christian, who has been in the school of Christ and has been instructed in the art of contentment, has some wealth, he thinks, in that I have wealth above my brethren, I have an opportunity to serve God the better, and I enjoy a great deal of God's mercy conveyed to my soul through the creature, and hereby I am enabled to do a good deal of good. In this I reckon the good of my wealth. And now that God has taken this away from me, if He will be pleased to make up the enjoyment of Himself in some other way, will call me to honor Him by suffering, and if I may do God as much service now by suffering, that is, by showing forth the grace of His Spirit in my sufferings as I did in my prosperity, I have as much of God as I had before. So if I may be led to God in my low condition as much as I was in my prosperous condition, I have as much comfort and contentment as I had before. Objection. You will say, it is true that if I could honor God in my low estate as much as in my prosperous estate, then it would be something. But how can that be? Answer. You must know that the special honor which God has from His creatures in this world is the manifestation of the graces of His Spirit. It is true that God gets a great deal of honor when a man is in a public place, and so is able to do a great deal of good, to countenance godliness and discountenance sin. But the main thing is in our showing forth the virtues of Him who has called us out of darkness into His marvelous light. If I can say that, through God's mercy in my affliction, I find the graces of God's Spirit working as strongly in me as ever they did when I had my wealth, I am where I was. Indeed, I am in quite as good a condition, for I have the same good now that I had in my prosperous estate. I reckoned the good of it only in my enjoyment of God and honoring of God, and now God has blessed the lack of it to stir up the graces of His Spirit in my soul. This is the work that God calls me to now, and I must consider God to be most honored when I do the work that He calls me to. He set me to work in my prosperous estate to honor Him at that time in that condition, and now He sets me to work to honor Him at this time in this condition. God is most honored when I can turn from one condition to another, according as He calls me to it. Would you account yourselves to be honored by your servants if when you set them about a work that has some excellence, they will go on, and you cannot get them off from it? However good the work may be, yet if you call them off to another work, you expect them to manifest enough respect to you as to be content to come off from that, even though they are set about a lesser work, if it is more useful to your ends. In the same way, you were in a prosperous estate, and there God was calling you to some service that you took pleasure in. But suppose God said, I will use you in a suffering condition, and will have you to honor me in that way. This is how you honor God, that you can turn this way or that way as God calls you to it. Thus, having learned this, that the good of the creature consists in the enjoyment of God in it, and the honoring of God by it, you can be content, because you have the same good that you had before, and that is the fifth lesson. Christ teaches the soul whom he brings into this school of knowledge in their own hearts. You must learn this, or you will never learn contentment. You must learn to know your own hearts well, to be good students of your own hearts. You cannot all be scholars in the arts and sciences in the world, but you all may be students of your own heart. Many of you cannot read in the book, but God expects you every day to turn over a leaf in your own hearts. You will never get any skill in this mystery of contentment except you study this book of your own hearts. Sailors have their books by which they study those who will be good navigators, and scholars have their books who study logic and rhetoric and philosophy, and those that study divinity have their books whereby they come to be helped in the study of divinity. But a Christian, next to the book of God, is to look into the book of his own heart and to read over that. And this will help you to contentment in three ways. 1. By studying your heart, you will soon come to discover where your discontent lies. When you are discontented, you will find the root of any discontent if you study your heart. Many men and women are discontented, and the truth is they do not know why. They think this and the other thing is the cause. But a man or woman who knows their own heart will soon find out where the root of their discontent lies, that it lies in some corruption and disorder of the heart, that through God's mercy I have now found out. It is similar to the case of a little child who is very awkward in the house, and when a stranger comes in he does not know what the matter is. Perhaps he will give the child a rattle or a nut or something of the sort to quiet it, but when the nurse comes she knows the temper and disposition of the child, and therefore knows how to calm it. It is just the same here. When we are strangers to our own hearts, we are powerfully discontented, and do not know how to quiet ourselves, because we do not know wherein the disquiet lies. But if we are very well versed in our own hearts, when anything happens to unsettle us, we soon find out the cause of it, and so quickly become quiet. When a man has a watch and understands the use of every wheel and pin, if it goes amiss, he will soon find out the cause of it. But when someone has no skill in a watch, if it goes amiss, he does not know what is the matter, and therefore he cannot mend it. Indeed, our hearts are as a watch, and there are many wheels and windings and turnings there, and we should labor to know our hearts well, that when they are out of tune, we may know what is the matter. 2. This knowledge of our hearts will help us to contentment, because by it we shall come to know what best suits our condition. A man who does not know his own heart does not think what need he has of affliction, and for that reason is uneasy. But when God comes with afflictions to the man or woman who have studied their own hearts, they can say, I would not have been without this affliction for anything in the world. God has so suited this affliction to my condition, and has come in such a way that if this affliction had not come, I am afraid I should have fallen into sin. When a poor countryman takes medicine, the medicine works, but he thinks it will kill him, because he does not know the bad humors that are in his body, and therefore he does not understand how suitable the medicine is for him. But if a doctor takes a purge and it makes him extremely sick, I like this better, he says. It is only working on the humor that I know is the cause of my disease. And because of that, such a man who has a knowledge and understanding of his body and the cause of his disorder is not troubled or disturbed. So would we be if we did but know the disorders of our own hearts. Carnal men and women do not know their own spirits, and therefore they fling and vex themselves at every affliction that befalls them. They do not know what disorders are in their hearts, which may be healed by their afflictions, if it pleases God to give them sanctified use of them. 3. By knowing their own hearts, they know what they are able to manage, and by this means they come to be content. Perhaps the Lord takes away many comforts from them that they had before, or denies them some things they hoped to have got. Now by knowing their hearts, they know that they were not able to manage such wealth, and they were not able to manage such prosperity. God saw it, and a poor soul says, I am in some measure convinced by looking into my own heart that I was not able to manage such a condition. A man desires greedily to hold on to more than he is able to manage, and so undoes himself. Countrymen observe that if they overstock their land, it will quickly spoil them. And so a wise husbandman who knows how much ground will bear is not troubled that he has not as much stock as others. Why? Because he knows he has not got enough ground as a great stock, and that quiets him. Many men and women who do not know their own hearts would fain have as prosperous a position as others, but if they knew their own hearts, they would know they were not able to manage it. Suppose one of your little children of 3 or 4 were crying for the coat of her sister who is 12 or perhaps 20, and said, "Why may not I have a coat as long as my sister's?" If she had, it would soon trip up her heels and scratch her face. But when the child comes to understanding, she is not discontented, because her coat is not as long as her sister's, but says, "My coat fits me," and therein she is content. So if we come to understanding in the school of Christ, we will not cry, "Why have I not got such wealth as others have?" But the Lord sees that I am not able to manage it, and I see myself by knowing my own heart. There are some children who, if they see a knife, will cry for it, because they do not know their strength and that they are not able to manage it. But you know they are not able to manage it, and therefore you will not give it to them. And when they come to sufficient understanding to know that they are not able to manage it, they will not cry out for it. Similarly, we would not cry for some things if we knew that we were not able to manage them. When you vex and fret for what you have not got, I may say to you, as Christ said, "You do not know of what spirit you are." It was a saying of Ecolampadius to Perillus when they were speaking about his extreme poverty. "Not so poor, though I have yet been very poor, yet I would be poor. I could be willing to be poorer than I am." And if he were to say, "The truth is, the Lord knew what was much more suitable to me, and I knew my own heart was such a poor condition that was more suitable to me than a rich heart." So certainly we would say, if we knew our own hearts, such and such a condition is better for me than if it had been otherwise. So we rest in God's sovereignty, and we acknowledge our own hearts by being aware. There's always a fine line between knowing your own heart, being self-obsessed. We want to avoid self-obsession. That's not easy. Of course, all of us tend that direction. But to understand kind of the workings of our heart, what triggers us toward discontent, that's going to vary person to person. So understanding something of our own heart is useful in the fight for contentment. And that's what Burroughs was bringing out in this section. So next time we'll start chapter 6, the conclusion of the School of Christ in Contentment. Thanks for watching today.